That's right, Moto fans, it's another Always Moto production brought to you by Leapmoto Australia. We are in the workshop today. We're going to be installing some pivot pegs. They're the Mark IVs on the Sherco Motorcycles Australia 300 two-stroke. Why are we changing over to the pivot pegs over these standard pegs that come on the bike on the Sherco? For a couple of reasons. They're wider. They have a much wider base that you're going to stand on. They're about 12 mil wider than the stock peg. They also have, as the naming suggests, they're a pivoting action, saving your sole of your boot from the wear because the peg is in flatter contact with your boot more often than not. What are you going to need to change out these pivot pegs? Mostly you're just going to need a pair of bullnose pliers. You may also utilise a flat blade screwdriver just to help get the pin, the split pin out, maybe the washer off the bottom. You may also need a hammer and a piece of bar. In this case I've got a punch to help maybe remove the original pin if it's a bit old and rusty. Maybe there's just a bit of grit in there, you may need a bit of persuasion to get it out. But usually you're probably not going to need these. Mostly, like I said, just the bullnose pliers. Let's get these pegs changed over. We're going to start getting that split pin out. Nothing like a split pin that won't cooperate. Alright, after a bit of persuasion we've got the split pin out. Had to go for an extra pair of side cutters to try and cut the top off the split pin because split pin wasn't playing a game. Now because this bike is fairly new, the pins aren't rusted in or anything, I was just able to wiggle it loose and push it on the finger, and I've got the pin, pulled it out, got the peg out, there's the spring peg, that's it, we're ready to go. We're ready to reinstall with the new pegs. Now you need to reuse the pin, but not the spring on the pivot pegs. Alright, now that we've got the pin out, we're going to do a couple of things. One, with the Sherco pegs, for the pivot pegs, there's actually a little spacer that goes underneath the peg to take up the space of the mount on the frame, so we're going to make sure we install that as well. We're going to apply a little bit of grease onto the pin, just to make sure it's moving freely and doesn't cause any binding when it's trying to go in, and it'll just help with the reinstall as well. So all I'm doing, pin in the top, little bit of pressure onto the spring because you've got to get the spring to line up. Make sure it went through that, that little spacer that was in there as extra. So we've got the pin back in, a little bit of wriggling, went straight through, made sure we slipped it through that spacer at the bottom. All we've got to do now is reinstall the new split pin, and they have come with a set in the box for the pivot peg, so you don't have to worry about if you destroy the original one. You get one in the box with the pivot peg so you can install that, and then that's job done, we're on to the second side. So we get our pliers out again. Just going to bend our split pin into place. Making sure that split pin is wrapped right around so we're not leaving any sharp edges sticking out to catch onto your foot or anything like that as you're riding. Job done, pivot peg installed.